Jamal was tall and built strong, the kind of strong that came from years of lifting more than just weight, lifting burdens, lifting people. His tattooed arms were fully visible, each one inked with stories of resilience, names, dates, flames, scripture, phoenix wings. Art that bared both his past and his growth. "Higher, Daddy," squealed his 5-year-old daughter, Alina, as she swung through the air. Jamal laughed a soft, deep sound. "You sure you're not gonna fly away?" She giggled, her pink dress fluttering in the wind, her 2 afro puffs bouncing with each motion. The love between them was as visible as the sunshine. Watching from a nearby bench was Margaret Whitmore, a woman in her early 60s. Sharp posture. Neatly styled silver blonde hair, a cream blouse, and beige slacks that hadn't seen a stain in years. Her hands cradled a lukewarm cup of coffee, but her eyes were fixed on Jamal and Alina. She couldn't stop watching them. Something about it didn't sit right with her. The tattoos. The backward cap. The way the little girl clung to his leg. Her mind, conditioned by decades of subtle messages and coded warnings, began to whisper. He doesn't look like a father. She doesn't look like him. What if something's wrong? When Alina ran to the slide and tripped, Jamal rushed to her, swift and instinctive. He lifted her before she could even cry, brushed dirt from her knees, and whispered, "You okay, baby?" But to Margaret, it looked like danger. Her breath caught. Her fingers trembled. She pulled out her phone. "Yes. I'm at Piedmont Park," she told the 911 operator. "There's a large black man with tattoos. He grabbed a little girl. She's crying. I don't think she's safe." Her voice was firm, certain. She never asked if the child had said, "Daddy." She never waited to see the hug. She just dialed. And hung up. The moment was over. But something irreversible had begun. Jamal kissed Alina's forehead and promised her ice cream. They were still hugging when the flashing lights appeared in the distance. The wail of sirens broke the calm like glass shattering in slow motion. Jamal looked up, puzzled, as 2 police cruisers rolled to a stop along the edge of the playground. The lights spun red and blue across the grass, across the slides, across Alina's small, curious face. Parents stopped mid-sentence. Children froze on the monkey bars. The air turned heavier, colder, despite the summer warmth. Jamal instinctively stepped in front of Alina as 2 officers approached, one male, one female. Their eyes swept over him, down to the little girl holding his hand. "Sir," the male officer said with practiced firmness, "we need you to step away from the child." Jamal's smile faded. "I'm sorry. We received a report of a possible child abduction," the female officer added. "Please keep your hands where we can see them." Alina's grip on her father's hand tightened. "Daddy," she whispered, voice trembling. "It's okay, sweetie," Jamal murmured, crouching down slightly. "Just stay calm." His voice was low, controlled. Not because he wasn't angry. But because he knew what could happen if it wasn't. "My name is Jamal Carter," he said, standing slowly with both hands visible. "This is my daughter, Alina. I have ID in my wallet. It's in my back pocket. May I reach for it?" The male officer nodded. Slowly. Jamal moved deliberately, carefully, pulling out his wallet like it might explode if moved too fast. He handed over his driver's license. "Her name is Alina Carter," he added. "I can show you her school ID. And her birth certificate, I have a PDF saved in my email. You can check it." The officers stepped aside to verify the information. Jamal remained still. Alina clung to his leg, confused and scared. A crowd had started to gather, parents who had seen the whole thing, whispering to one another. "She called the cops on him," one mother murmured. "For what? Pushing his own kid on a swing?" another said. Margaret stood nearby, clutching her handbag tightly. Her lips parted like she might explain, but no words came. Just that same tight feeling in her chest. Doubt. Regret. Shame she wasn't ready to name. The officers returned. Mr. Carter, everything checks out. We're sorry for the inconvenience. Jamal stared at them. You scare a 5-year-old, and call it inconvenience? We were following protocol, the female officer said quietly. Right. Protocol, Jamal repeated, jaw tight. He picked up Alina, who was now quietly sobbing into his shoulder. You okay, baby? She nodded, wiping her tears. Can we still get ice cream? Of course, he whispered. You earned double scoops today. He didn't look back at Margaret. He didn't have to. Because her silence, her fear, and her choice had already shouted loud enough. And now, it would echo in her for days. Margaret didn't sleep that night. She sat in her armchair near the window, watching the dark shift into early morning gray. Her hands were wrapped around a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. The image of Jamal standing still, holding his child as two officers questioned him, haunted her. But it wasn't just that. It was the look on the little girl's face. The quiet confusion. The betrayal. And the fact that she, Margaret Whitmore, had caused it. I just thought something was off. He looked suspicious. I was only trying to help. Excuses echoed through her head like a courtroom with no verdict. But none of them made the guilt feel lighter. The next evening, her son Will stopped by with her grandson, Micah. Micah ran inside with a crayon drawing clutched in his hand. Grandma. Look. I made a fire truck. Margaret forced a smile. Wow, that's wonderful, sweetheart. Will chuckled, tossing his keys on the counter. They're obsessed with firefighters right now. School's doing a whole fire safety week. Apparently, they're bringing in an actual firefighter for a guest session next Friday. Oh? Margaret asked casually. Yeah. Jamal Carter. That name sound familiar? He's kind of a local hero, there's a bunch of news articles about him. Saved a family in a house fire last year. Some big apartment fire in East Point. School says he's been working with kids too. Margaret's heart dropped into her stomach. Jamal Carter, she repeated, already knowing the answer. Will nodded. Yep. He's got a daughter around Micah's age too. Cute kid. Alina, I think. She said nothing. Just nodded. That night, when the house was quiet again, Margaret opened her laptop. She typed, Jamal Carter firefighter Atlanta, into the search bar. And there he was. In photo after photo, Jamal stood in uniform, sometimes with soot on his face, sometimes holding a rescued child, other times speaking to a crowd of teenagers. His arms, inked with stories, were there in every shot. Not as signs of danger, but of strength. One video showed him explaining fire safety to a group of children at a rec center. Alina sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Another article read, Firefighter rescues family from apartment blaze, I did what anyone would do. And beneath it, a quote from Jamal, people judge you before they know your name. I'm used to it. I just hope my daughter grows up in a world that's a little better than mine. Margaret couldn't look away. The man she feared, the man she called the police on, was the same man her grandson would soon look up to. And in that moment, the weight of what she had done didn't just sting. It burned. But somewhere beneath the shame was a quiet voice, new and soft, that whispered, you can do better. And this time, she chose to listen. The school auditorium buzzed with low chatter. Children sat crisscrossed on the floor while parents lined the folding chairs behind them. A banner stretched across the stage. Fire Safety Week, meet Atlanta's real-life hero. Margaret sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. Her heart hadn't stopped pounding since she arrived. She hadn't planned to come at first. But then she'd thought about Micah, about what kind of example she wanted to set for him. About the kind of world she'd helped shape, and the one she still had time to influence. A hush fell over the crowd as the doors opened. Jamal walked onto the stage in full uniform, the navy blue pressed sharp, his boots polished, his posture confident. But it wasn't the uniform that caught Margaret's breath, it was him. Calm. Centered. Powerful in the quietest way. Beside him stood Alina, dressed in a miniature firefighter outfit, her little red helmet tilted slightly on her curls. She waved to the audience and giggled when kids waved back. Jamal took the mic. "Good morning, everyone," he said, smiling. "My name is Jamal Carter. I'm a firefighter with Station 17, and I'm here today not just to talk about putting out fires, but about how to stop them before they even start." He walked the kids through safety tips. Check your smoke alarms. Practice your exit plan. Know your safe meeting spot. He let Alina demonstrate stop, drop, and roll, and the children roared with laughter when she rolled dramatically across the stage floor. But through it all, Margaret barely heard the words. She was watching him. The dignity. The patience. The kindness. The man she had feared. The man she had nearly cost everything. When he finished, applause rang out. Children clapped, parents stood. But before Jamal could step down, Margaret stood up. Her voice trembled. "Mr. Carter, may I say something?" The room quieted instantly. Every eye turned to her. Even Jamal paused, surprised. She stepped forward, her heels clicking softly against the floor, and took the mic. "My name is Margaret Whitmore," she began, her voice shaking but steady. "And a few weeks ago, I did something I deeply regret." She turned to face the crowd. "I was at the park when I saw Mr. Carter playing with his daughter. And instead of seeing love, I saw something else. Something wrong. I called the police. I made assumptions based on how he looked. His tattoos. His skin. His presence." Gasps echoed. "I was wrong," she said. "And I am so sorry." The silence was deafening. Then Jamal stepped forward, looked her directly in the eyes, and held out his hand. "I forgive you," he said, "not just for her to hear, but for Alina, for everyone. And I hope you'll teach your grandson what that moment meant." She nodded, tears brimming. "I will." In that crowded auditorium, full of small hands and growing hearts, something powerful happened. Not a fire put out. But a spark of change, finally lit. Weeks had passed since the school assembly, but the impact of that moment lingered far beyond the applause. Jamal didn't talk much about what had happened, not to his coworkers, not even to his friends. But he carried it. Quietly. Like a scar beneath his sleeve. Not out of bitterness, but because some wounds don't need to bleed to be felt. And Margaret? She changed. She joined an allyship group at her local library. She read books she once ignored. She had hard conversations with friends who thought like she used to. And every time she saw Micah playing with a child of a different race, she whispered a silent promise, "You'll grow up better than I did." One Sunday afternoon, the sky warm and the trees dressed in early fall, Jamal and Alina returned to the same park where everything began. Jamal wore a white half-sleeve t-shirt, his tattooed arms exposed to the sun. His jeans were cuffed at the ankle, his sneakers clean. He sat on a bench beneath a tree, his daughter climbing the jungle gym nearby. He watched her with a peaceful smile, the kind that came not from having a perfect life, but from knowing he was doing his best with the one he had. Then a familiar voice spoke beside him. "Mind if I sit?" It was Margaret. She wore a lavender cardigan over a white blouse, her silver hair now loose, tucked behind one ear. She held 2 cups of coffee. "One's for you," she said softly. Jamal took it without a word, gave a slow nod of thanks. For a moment, they just watched the kids, Alina and Micah playing tag, their laughter echoing through the trees like music. Margaret finally spoke. "He thinks the world of your daughter. Says she's the fastest girl in his class." Jamal chuckled. "She probably is." More silence. But this time, it felt like comfort. "I've learned a lot since that day," Margaret said quietly. "About myself. About what I thought I knew." Jamal glanced at her. "And?" "I didn't know anything," she admitted. "Not really." He looked back at the children. "Most people don't. But you showed up. That counts." They watched Alina help Micah cross a balance beam, cheering him on with a loud, "You got this," that made them both laugh. "She's got a big heart," Margaret said. "She gets that from her mom," Jamal replied, his voice soft. "Lost her when Alina was just 2. Margaret blinked. "I'm so sorry. She's why I keep showing up. Why I don't let moments like that day harden me." Margaret nodded slowly. "You're teaching her something powerful." He smiled. "I'm trying." And in that moment, beneath the same sun that once witnessed fear and misunderstanding, 2 people sat side by side, not divided by race or history, but connected by humility and hope. The past hadn't disappeared. But something better had taken root. A new chapter. One built not on suspicion, but on truth. Not on fear, but on grace. Not on silence, but on showing up. Together.